We are going to get into our survivor slash caregiver presentations. Normally we just have survivors speak during this, but we decided this year to add the aspect also of getting the perspective from the caregiver. And first up, we have Tom and Sandy Zehrer, and they are here today. Tom is actually a 21-year survivor of an aortic dissection. So him and I are kind of two peas in a pod. We both had aortic dissections, a little bit different path, but you'll hear a little bit more of his amazing story here in just a moment. 10 years ago, he also had survived a total aorta replacement, and he'll explain a little bit, but when I say total, that means total. He had the whole thing replaced. And then, of course, he also worked for many years after dissection until his retirement. So please welcome to the stage survivor Tom Zehrer and his wife Sandy.
It's really good to be here because, you know, quite a few years ago I didn't know that I'd be alive, but here I am. And I think part of our story is we grew up in a small town. We both grew up on dairy farms. We moved a total of two miles probably in our lives until 3 years ago. But I think all this shaped how we've handled what's happened. Another thing that's happened is we have two daughters with cystic fibrosis, and they were diagnosed 40 some years ago. And it made us be together focusing on somebody else's trauma, our girls. We had to work so hard to keep them healthy that I think it just came into this making us caregivers. And we're caregivers for a child, which you'll do anything. And I think through that, what happened in 2004 is on a nice April evening, I took my little motorcycle that I had as a kid, got it fixed up, went for a short ride, and all of a sudden I was just freezing, just cold. I haven't really been warm since, but at that point it's like, oh, something's not quite right. Didn't really have chest pain at that point. Went home, Sandy was gone. I kind of, walked back and forth, and it's like, well, should I go in? No, I'll wait till Sandy comes. So we waited, went into our little small town hospital, and thinking that, first thing is heart attack. And the doctor came. There's not a doctor there all the time, so he came from out where he lived. Took about 20 minutes. He comes in, he said, you shouldn't be pacing, you should sit if you're having a heart attack. Okay. Well, he did the test for a heart attack, nothing showed up. And just basically put me in bed and gave me morphine so that I wouldn't have pain. And really, I don't remember much else until the next day when he came in and said, well, he said I had to have a CT scan. Well, they don't bring the CT scan in a small town during the night. She came in at irregular hours, gave me a CT scan, and they sent the results on to the higher hospital, St. Cloud, and I think they sent it on to Abbott, Minneapolis Heart, and the doctor came in. I just remember him saying, it's a lot worse than we thought. We have a helicopter on the way. And that's really all I remember. Got in the helicopter, I remember that. Don't remember anything about the helicopter ride, which I always wanted to take, but not in that condition. And remember getting out of the helicopter on the top of Abbott and Minneapolis Heart. The doctor were there and his whole team. And I was on a gurney. And before I got to the elevator to take us down, I was out. And they were, planning on doing whatever they needed to do. Well, they found out that I had an ascending aortic dissection. So it started right at the aortic valve. And I don't know really how far it went, not very far. But it wasn't a total dissection yet. It had, the inside layer had collapsed part way. So I had a little blood flow, not a lot. That's why I was cold. And my blood pressure was really quite low. And they took me into surgery, and he had to replace the valve with a mechanical one because he said I had nothing to sew the graft to. And they put in a graft of, I don't know how long. And so I really didn't know anything that was going on until, quite a bit later. Sandy was there, and the doctor was there pacing when I got up, or woke up. And it really had gone quite well, he said. And we kind of like, I was used to being a farmer that every day there's a problem of some kind, and it's like you deal with it. What do I got to do? So that's the way this was. We did what he told us to do. And I don't remember how long I was in the hospital. Sandy knows all that.
Okay. That was Tom's side of it. Because he was the center of attention, and the people were doing everything they could do to help him. And that particular day this happened was the day after my daughter Rose had knee surgery. And I had just told Tom, she's had knee surgery, and it was not going well. The recuperation, she had a lot of pain. And so she was in the wheelchair at our house. I had to run an errand, and I came back, and Tom was there, and he had that pain, like you said. And we couldn't leave Rose by herself, so we had to call his mom and dad. They came over, and then we went to the hospital. And then it's like, okay, Tom's here, and he's in pain, and I have Rose at home, and we didn't want to scare Tom's mom and dad. So I had to go back and not get them all upset and say, they're taking care of Tom. They don't know what it is. It's not a heart attack, but they're going to keep him overnight. Well, as the night went on, I was taking care of Rose, and the next morning I just had this feeling I need to go. Called in work, I'm not going to go. Called my sister, she came over for my daughter, and then I went in, and they found out it was the dissection, and then it was him going, but there was all the stuff at home to get managed so that I could go down. Well, then I went down, and I stayed he was in for like 8 days, I think. He didn't go home until he got his pacemaker. And we were both kind of upset about the pacemaker diagnosis, but really, that is such a blessing, because that made him feel better like right now. And it's been good over the years because it tells the doctors how he's doing. It's got PVCs, they've adjusted medicine. We've seen, it's been a good thing. Well, then through the caregiver thing, we are going down to the cities about every 6 months to have tests.
At that time, I think it was every 3, but.
Well, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But we went together, but the one time I didn't, it was 11 years after his dissection. I was taking his mother to the hospital for something that she needed, and I couldn't go along with Tom. And the doctor comes in, and he looks around. I wasn't there, and he had to tell Tom, it's time, we need to fix your aorta.
Well, then he sent us another doctor at Minneapolis Heart, and he says, your aorta is more or less a huge aneurysm. It's got to be replaced. And we don't do it. He sent us to Mayo. And we went to Mayo and talked to a couple of the heart specialists there. And, really we didn't have a choice. It's either wait for when you're going to die, whether it's tomorrow or next month, maybe, whatever. But so we said, we got to do it. Well, the one doctor one doctor did surgery, it did the upper arch, they call it, where the blood goes to the brain, I guess, and took care of that. And really, I think the recovery from that went really quite well. And I even remember we took one of the few vacations we did, we did some driving in between surgeries. Well, the next one, then 2 surgeons did that, and I was in the OR for 13 hours. They replaced the rest of the aorta from the upper arch down into my legs, past the Y. So I have a total graft. And they explained what could go wrong, which was quite a few things. And he just said, well, we'll try and get all those connections made that to your organs for sure, and that kind of thing. He kind of not hinted, kind of said that, well, I could end up being paralyzed, but I wanted to be here. I said, let's do it. We did it. And that, I don't know how long I was in. I don't remember that either. Most of the time I was probably under. But I think we were in at least a couple weeks. And then a couple weeks later, we went back to Mayo to get checked out. And that's when they told us this is usually when you'd be going home. So we were home for 2 weeks before I normally would go.
Well, there was something that led to that getting released, and it was when the doctor found out that I was able to take care of a open wound. And so this doctor, I remember their names and can still see their faces, and I just said, and he said, well, we really like to see them home where they can recuperate and everything and stuff. And they were going to let him go. So they showed me how to take care of a part of his incision that was left open, and then to rebandage it. And I drove him from Mayo to home by myself, taking him into the women's bathroom with me at the Pilot gas station. See, I will do anything for them. Just do what you gotta do. And then we had a king size sleep number bed, but it was separate. So he could put his head up, but I could sleep right next to him, regular bed, and he wouldn't call me because I wouldn't hear it. But he could reach over and hit my arm, and then I'd be there for him. And I worked at a place that was very good to me, and it was just 2 stop signs from my house. So yep. It was really close. So if there were some things, but we had a couple of sisters come and help. Yeah.
So things just really constantly improved. There was a point where I really wasn't feeling well and doing well. They did an echocardiogram, and it was about 25% ejection fraction, and about 25% of my beats were PVCs. So it's kind of like at that point I was barely living. But I asked the doctor, well, what can I not do? And he said, you do whatever you can. And I kept doing that. And through this all, we kept praying. And that's a huge part of our recovery, or my recovery, and our girls' recoveries, is that we prayed. And now, to this day, part of my day is a prayer. And that calms me and gives me strength to do whatever needs to be done. But about 2 years after that big surgery, I'd wake up in the morning and not know what was going on or who I was. And that got progressively worse. Went into the emergency room, I don't know how many times, was hauled to St. Cloud a couple times. And finally they said, we don't know what's going on. They sent me back to Minneapolis Heart. Well, they watched me with a camera and put an EEG on, and they found that I was having seizures during the night. And it didn't affect anything physical, but I would have mental lapses. It was just, I lost more memory. Well, in the end, I basically lost about 40 years of one-time events. And so that was probably harder than anything, losing those. But I've kind of pretty much gotten over that too. It's like, well, if something comes up, it's like, if it's important, I'll find out. She's there for me.
He never forgot us.
Yeah.
He always knew. You knew yourself too, but you didn't. He'd lose like 3 days of his new memory. Like we went biking. Okay, we went biking, and he couldn't remember that weekend. Well, when he went down to the Abbott, they found that he had the seizures. He got medicine. He ended up retiring because of the memory things. That was hard to take. But, you know, we're together. We've shared. You know, we wouldn't want to be with
We got
anybody
5
else.
grandkids. It's,
Yeah,
we get to go
life
to their
is
games,
good.
and so.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right. Thank you, Tom and Sandy. Powerful message. And Tom, the helicopter ride was fun. That's about the only thing I remember about my it's very expensive. I want to thank everyone for attending today. Thank you to obviously all the providers and speakers that were here today. Thank you for attending. Thank you for all the great people and partnerships that we've made over the years that has helped make this possible.